Yes, I think you did.
Good evening. Welcome to the Do Tell Story Swap of Sonoma County. I'm Katie Mangan, and I'm your host for this evening. So pleased you're all here. This is just a reminder of the order of events and what happens. Stories are to be told and not read between 5 to 7 minutes. And if you have a longer story, you can request to be put towards the end. And we'll start, we have some short stories, which we'll start with. And at some point we will take a break. And then when we come back, we will have announcements. And also we have a prompt. And I can't remember, do we do the prompt before or after?
I think before.
Okay, all right. So good.
And don't forget, if you could just please mute when other people are telling stories.
Yes, so Vicky is the co-host. This is so cool. All right, so this is exciting. Our first teller tonight will be Bev. Welcome, Bev.
Thank you. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is a brand new story and it's premiering here tonight. And I hope you enjoy it. And if you have any comments, I'd love to hear about them. Okay. No, wait, I have to get my cat away. Okay. The name of it is There's Always Room for One More. I got a call from the Institute of History and Art in Albany, New York. Could you spotlight me, by the way, please? I'd appreciate it. Okay. Okay, there's always room for one more. I got a phone call from the Institute of History and Art asking me if I could create a story for them within 2 days, videotape it so they could put it on YouTube as an exhibit of something that was in their museum at the moment, or look at their archives and pick out something you see and write a story about it. Well, I started in the archives and I went to photography. And there was pictures of all different things. And all of a sudden, I froze. There was a picture of downtown Albany in 1923. It was a hustle bustle kind of picture with people going and coming and wagons and horses and trolley courses and all the shops and all the people dressed in all different types of clothes because they had immigrated to Albany from all different parts of the world in the early 1900s. I had seen this picture before. I ran into my closet, took out my mother's maiden name, family history of pictures. I'm the historian for my whole family. And I went through, and then again, I found 4 pictures to go with the 2 identical ones almost of downtown Albany in 1923. There were a set of 6 pictures. I had 4, they had 2. That is how I remembered Albany as I was a little girl, because my grandparents had immigrated to Albany around 1914. They came from Eastern Europe. They were Jews, and the Jews there were being told, get out of our countries or you will be killed. And a lot of them came to New York City through Ellis Island. And a lot of people had left before, both my grandparents, my grandmother from Poland and my grandfather from Romania. And they were told, you're a seamstress, you're a tailor, go on up to Albany. There's an association of Hebrew tailors there. They will set you up with your own shop and they will help you get settled and learn English and help you become an American citizen. And they traveled up to Albany and they were welcome, just like other immigrants in those days were. And they made downtown Albany the center of the universe of the whole area. My grandfather in 1923 opened up his tailor shop. He was one of the shops in the pictures. It was M. Scherer Tailor. And I have a picture of him standing proudly in front of his shop the day he opened it. He met my grandmother, they got married, and they worked together for 50 years till they retired. in that little tailor shop, and they lived above it, where all my aunts and my uncles were born, including my mother. Now, my mother would drive, and after she got married to my father, had me, and they would drop me off at the tailor shop to be watched so my mother and father could do things and go to work. And I would sit there with my grandma next to a potbelly stove when she wasn't working at her sewing machine. Or I would stand looking at my grandfather, with his pressing clothes. But they also had people coming and going from all over the world, because Albany was the bustling city of upstate New York at that time. And my grandfather had two signs in his shop. Sorry, no trust. And he'd stand there in the picture like this when I took it later on in the years later. But the other sign was even more important. It said, not responsible for clothes left after 30 days. I would see my grandfather, bring back the clothes that people didn't take and put it in the far back room. And my grandmother always had bags of food on the table. And I'd watch, and my grandfather and grandmother would say to their customers, hey, we have some clothes. If you know some immigrants or people in need, tell them to come here. We'll give them free clothes for them. And people from all over the world in different clothes and languages that didn't even speak English yet would come to the stores, and my grandparents would welcome them. My grandmother would take them to the back of the store and have them try on clothes and take them home with them. But they never left with just the clothes. My grandmother also gave them a brown bag full of food. And my grandmother would say, you should always welcome strangers into your life, especially new ones that are just beginning their life here in America. There's a Jewish tradition. There's always room for one more person for you to help in life. So be kind to strangers and immigrants. And the other thing my grandparents did, which I wasn't sure how to take it in the beginning, was I'd come to dinner at their house. My parents lived on the top floor of a two-family house, and I went down a lot to eat dinner at my grandparents' house. And there was always a couple people that weren't part of the family. And they were dressed in those different clothes, and they were speaking different language. And I would say, Grandma, why are these people here? They're not part of our family. Well, Bevy, she would say, when people come to America and they're immigrants, they don't have any other friends here. And there's always room for one more you can squeeze around the table to feed and welcome them into our home and country. And as I grew up, my mother did the same thing. I would come home and there would be one, two, who knows who was going to show up at our kitchen table. And she would always say, Grandma always taught me, there's always room for one more. And I have carried on that tradition. For example, Christmas time. There's a lot of people that don't have a place to go to celebrate their holiday of Christmas. And though I am Jewish, I always look for people that I know, even Jewish or non-Jewish people. And I say, I'm having a dinner on Christmas Day. Whether you celebrate Christmas or not, you are welcome to come. This year now I have 5 people coming. 3 I don't know yet, and 2 I know. And if I find anybody between now and Christmas, I will make sure that I invite them and make sure a candy cane is on their plates as they come and sit down at my table. Think about it. People that are new to an area, to a new country, they don't feel welcome maybe today too, because of all the problems we have with people feeling that we don't want more immigrants into our country. But our country is made of immigrants. And we today can make that difference of welcoming people into our home. That picture I saw was worth 1,000 words or more. It brought back my memories of what the traditions I follow, that my family and other families did in the early 1900s by welcoming people into our country and making them feel like America is their home as well. So remember, there's always room for one more at the table. Thank you. Any comments?
Yeah, that was lovely. That was a great, I'm sorry, it just took me a while to get us back. A lovely childhood story, and just such an interesting way that, you know, it came about, that those photographs in the museum jogged your memory. And such a beautiful line, there's always room for one more. So thank you so much. That's a very lovely personal story.
At the end of this evening, I did a little 1-minute slideshow of the pictures of my grandparents' store. And if there's room, I can show it to you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe around the break, Bev, if you've got those pictures, we could see.
Yeah, I'll do a share screen and do it that way or something. I don't know.
Okay.
I'll try to
That
figure
sounds
it out before then, okay?
Okay.
And I just have to say one other thing. On my Ring doorbell, I have a watch, an Apple Watch, and it just showed a picture of my car in the garage. And say, how could that happen? And I don't know if I just made sure the door was locked from the house to the garage. But if I disappear,
Yeah.
or say something, call 911 for me.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know if someone's trying to break into my house or not.
I don't, yeah, you'll be good.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you again, Bev.
You're
Now
welcome.
we're going to go to Beth
Hi.
for a story. So Beth, let me hold on, and I'm going to, sorry, I'm not going to mute. I'm going to go here. Speaker.
Well, here I am.
Oh, there you are.
I'm right here.
Thank you, Beth.
A very different tone we're going into. I was thinking a little bit about solstices coming up, and I was also pulling from my archive of teacher goodies from way back. And this is from actually a 4th grade curriculum. And in a way, it needs one caveat. This is a Native American story that is a conglomeration of many, perhaps, stories, and they're meant to be told in the wintertime, and it's close enough to winter now. This is the story of how light came to be in the world. Now, in the very before time, when it was so dark, Coyote was making his tracks, looking and seeking and hoping to find just a little light somewhere. But no, there was nothing. He was running into rocks and stepping on thorns, and trying to make his way up to the top of that great mountain we call Shasta now. As he made his way up, he kept thinking, isn't there something I can do to bring light into the world? He got to the very top, and who should be there already but Hawk? Ah, is that you, Coyote? You have scared the feathers almost off of me. What are you doing up here on the top of the mountain? Oh, Hawk, I'm trying to bring light into the world. I thought if I came up, an idea would come. Oh, Coyote, you are just a dreamer. How can you bring light into the world? And off Hawk flew with his magnificent wings, leaving Coyote all alone once again. And he sat down on his haunches and thought. He thought so hard, the darker and darker it got, until finally he decided to go back down that slope. And as he did so, he misstepped right off the path into a hole, and when he bumped, all the ideas that weren't there before, one of them landed right on his brain, and he said, of course. And off he went, very carefully treading down to the great Tule Marsh. where the tule grasses grew and grew. It was a beautiful sight, but he couldn't see it. All he could do was feel it, finding the dry grasses and pulling until his paws were so bloody and sore. But the pile was huge, and he began with one dry stem, twisting it tight, pulling it tighter, and wrapping and pulling and wrapping and pulling, excuse me, until the cats came home, until her ball became larger and larger and larger. He was pretty satisfied that nothing had ever been created like this before. And as if there were some magic, he was able to push that gigantic ball back the path up the slope, and he called out, "Hawk!" And Hawk's big wings could be heard. Whoosh, whoosh. Is that you, Coyote? I am so sorry I left you before. Oh, Hawk, I need your help. Only you, and only you, can take this up to the sky where only you can fly in your magnificence. And when you get to the height of your powers and the height of the sky, take this rock that you're carrying in your beak and the one in your talon and strike them together. Well, Hawk was a boastful bird and could not resist flattery. And so with every effort and calling on all that super strength, Coyote from behind and Hawk above, spreading its beautiful wings, whoosh, up, 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 Hawk went. Coyote sat back and watched and wished that Hawk could go higher and higher, and Hawk did, until finally Hawk was so high, the north wind looked around and said, "Who is this in my home? You don't belong here." And the north wind blew, and it blew until the feathers in Hawk's face were so much in his eyes, and the tail feathers almost broke. But Hawk kept going. Those magnificent wings pulling on every bit of energy and strength. Hawk made it to where the air was calm, and then began to strike those rocks together. One spark flew out, but north wind blew it out. Another spark came off, but that third spark hit those dry tule grasses, and the flame spread out so quickly, Hawk could barely get away before its feathers were very lightly singed. And that's why they have that black tip in the feathers. Hawk flew back to earth and admired the beauty of the world and his own magnificent feathers indeed. And Coyote sat back too and was so pleased. "Thank you, Hawk, but Coyote was never perfectly satisfied, because there were dark times called night. And Coyote thought about it, and Coyote gave Hawk another ball to fly up into the sky. But when this was lit, it shone with a silvery and dim light, and Coyote blamed himself for pulling out damp reeds to give Hawk to light. And sometimes, North Wind was able to blow on that moon, and it became just a crescent, sometimes a quarter lit and sometimes halfway. But whenever the moon is full in its dim and silvery light, Coyote and all of Coyote's descendants sit back on their haunches and howl out, "Ooh, the moon is too dim." And so Coyote made the world ready for the coming of the human beings. And we get to enjoy all the different phases of the moon. And so it is. Coyote will be making his tracks again. The end.
Oh, that is wonderful.
That version type came from a very old curriculum called Tales California Indians Told for fourth grade curriculum. And I have a feeling it's probably not in circulation and probably has been considered for some of the other stories, maybe not totally accurate, but I love to tell it because the kids really like that idea of Hawk and Coyote.
and so beautifully told, with the hawk's feathers and Coyote's voice. And of course, it was wonderful having your cat join us. Just perfect. But Beth, those are stories that we really want to hear. They are just, and you tell them so beautifully. So thank you.
I will come with another story. I'll be in Hawaii in January and next, so I think I'll work on a Hawaiian folktale.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next on our list is Sharon.
Ooh.
Sharon, are you ready? You go to speaker.
Okay. Can you hear me? It's okay?
Yes?
All right. The end of the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution, was a great time for Germany. Factories sprung up all along the Rhine and mills, and a man who had access to capital and some business sense could do very well indeed. And such a man was Max Baumeier. He had a thriving factory and a second one under construction. And Max was a prosperous and contented person. But other countries weren't doing that well. Italy, Poland, Greece, Turkey, all of those countries were struggling economically, and some of their people immigrated, like Beverly talked about, immigrated to Germany because any able-bodied person could get work in Germany. The hours were long, 12, 16-hour days, and housing was expensive. But if a person was careful, he could feed his family. And such a person was Pietro Rossi. He had been working in Max Baumeier's factory for 3 years now, and he had been able to care for his family and put a little money aside. And then disaster struck. One morning on his way to work, a loose roof tile just randomly broke off and came crashing down on him. Anna Rossi was just fixing breakfast for their children when the neighbors carried her husband in, bloody and unconscious. His time in the hospital used all of their savings and then some. And at the end of it, he had mostly recovered, but he could not speak. And Anna Rossi thought if she could just get him home to their native country, they had relatives with big flocks of sheep, and maybe he could work as a shepherd where he wouldn't have to speak, and he was good with animals. But they couldn't afford that trip. And now she was earning their living with laundry, doing people's laundry. And one day a week, she went to the Baumeier mansion and went down the steps into the laundry room in the basement. And the thing about that laundry room was it was brick and it had wonderful acoustics. And of course, the laundry produced a lot of steam, which was good for her voice. And Anna Rossi loved to sing. So while she was down there, she was singing a Christmas song, not a cheery Deck the Halls kind of Christmas song, but the kind that's filled with longing. She sang, "Come, oh, come, Emmanuel." And little Klaus Rossi was out in the yard building a snowman, and he heard that. So he left what he was doing and went down the steps to the basement to find out what was going on. Meantime, Frau Baumeier looked out the door, and her little boy, who's supposed to be building a snowman, was gone. So she threw on her cloak and ran out to see where he was and followed the tracks to the laundry room. Down the stairs she went to a place where she had never been in her own laundry room and found a stranger washing her clothes. And so Anna Rossi explained to her that the housekeeper had hired her to come once a week and do laundry. And she told her that the housekeeper sometimes gave them a pot of soup or stew to take home because she knew of their dire circumstances. And Mrs. Baumeier said, "What dire circumstances?" And Anna Rosie explained to her what had happened to her husband. And then she saw the stricken look on little Klaus's face because he was worried for her. And he said, she said, "Oh, don't be worried, because I think St. Nicholas might help us. He was born in our town. It's his hometown too. And I'm sure he'll do something that will help." And Frau Baumeier said, "Well, I don't know about St. Nicholas, but I'm sure we could do something. Let me think about that." And for the first time in weeks, Anna Rosie went home with a light heart because she thought, "Oh, Frau Baumeier is going to think about it. She'll think about it." But the holiday season for busy industrialists is a busy time. And Frau Baumeier had presents to buy and invitations to send and menus to plan and cards to write. And she forgot the worried woman in the laundry room. Well, on the 6th of December, St. Nicholas Day, the whole family was gathered together at the Baumeier mansion. There were the aunts and uncles and cousins and brothers and sisters and grandparents. Everybody was there. And Uncle Carl snuck out and changed into the red suit and red hat of St. Nicholas. They always chose him for that because he had a good belly and a big white beard. And when he came back in, the children saw him coming in. And so they all lined up, because when St. Nicholas came to each child, he would ask them to say a Bible verse. And if they could do it, he gave them a golden coin. But when he got to little Klaus, Klaus said, "Do you know the Rossi family? They come from your hometown." And St. Nicholas said, "Well, I'm sure I must. They're in my book here, but it would take me a while to look them up. So why don't you tell me about them?" And little Klaus told what had happened. And St. Nicholas said, "What's your name, child?" And the boy said, "Klaus." "Well, Nicholas." And St. Nicholas said, "Wait, you have my same name?" And the little boy said, "I never thought of that. I do. I have the same name." And St. Nicholas said, "Well, if you have my name, perhaps it's time you took on some of my job responsibilities. And so I put the question to you. What are you going to do to help the Rossi family?" And little Klaus thought for a few minutes, and then he ran out of the room and came back with his piggy bank and broke it open. And when the relatives saw that, they all opened their pockets and purses and billfolds and wallets and all that they had, and everybody put however money they had on them into that pile. And soon there was plenty of money to send the Rossi family on the trip that they needed, and then some. Well, later, when the kids had gone to bed, the adults were sitting around talking. They laughed at Uncle Carl and they said, "That boy really put you on the spot." And Uncle Carl said, "He put all of us on the spot because there are families all around, like the Rossi family, and some of them are in great need of help. So the question is, what can we do to be of help?" Well, that discussion went on far into the night. And as it did, the true spirit of Christmas descended on that German household.
Oh. Thank you, Sharon. That was a really sweet Christmas story, beautifully told, as always. Yeah, great. Very nice. So our next pillar is Diamond. Are you there? Ready to tell? If you're not, maybe we'll move on and come back. Okay, it's 7:30. Do we want to do the prompt and then take a short break? Does that sound good?
How
Okay.
many people do we have telling stories?
So we have you, Vicky, and possibly me, but mine is a little longer. Or do you want to tell your story? And
Diamond, she's back in.
she is. Diamond, are you with us again?
Yes, but you'll have to stop the recording.
Okay, okay. I didn't want to stop it until you're ready. So just hold on. I'm going to stop the recording. Okay, so the recording, stop recording, stop